In the modern theater of warfare, where precision-guided munitions can strike targets within meters of their intended coordinates and military units can navigate complex terrain with unprecedented accuracy, few technologies are as critical to military success as the global positioning system. For Israel, a nation that has built its defense strategy around technological superiority and precision warfare, GPS represents far more than a navigation convenience. It is the invisible backbone that enables everything from missile guidance systems to coordinated troop movements across multiple fronts. The loss of GPS capability during active combat would represent a catastrophic degradation of military effectiveness that could fundamentally alter the outcome of any conflict, forcing Israeli forces to confront enemies using methods and technologies that haven't been primary tactical considerations for decades. This is the story of what would happen if Israel lost GPS during a war, an exploration of one of the most vulnerable yet critical dependencies in modern military operations. We will examine the cascading effects that would ripple through every level of Israeli military capability, from individual soldier navigation to strategic missile defense systems, revealing how a single point of failure in space-based infrastructure could transform a technologically advanced military into something resembling the armies of previous generations. This scenario is not merely theoretical. It represents a genuine strategic vulnerability that military planners must consider as adversaries develop increasingly sophisticated electronic warfare and anti-satellite capabilities. Prepare to discover the hidden fragilities of modern warfare, where the most advanced military forces in the world remain dependent on satellites orbiting hundreds of miles above Earth, and where the loss of these invisible assets could prove more devastating than the destruction of entire armored divisions or air squadrons. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel right now for more incredible war secrets and the legendary military technologies that are reshaping the future of global defense. The immediate impact of GPS loss on Israeli military operations would be felt most acutely in the realm of precision-guided munitions, which form the cornerstone of Israeli tactical doctrine and strategic deterrence capability. Modern Israeli military operations rely heavily on GPS-guided bombs, missiles, and artillery shells that can strike targets with accuracy measured in single-digit meters, allowing for surgical strikes that minimize collateral damage while maximizing military effectiveness. Without GPS guidance, these precision weapons would revert to inertial navigation systems and pre-programmed flight paths that are significantly less accurate, potentially missing targets by hundreds of meters and requiring much larger warheads to achieve the same destructive effect. The Iron Dome missile defense system, which has become synonymous with Israeli homeland security, would face severe degradation in its ability to intercept incoming projectiles without GPS-enhanced tracking and guidance capabilities. While the system incorporates multiple sensor types and guidance methods, GPS provides critical real-time positioning data that enables the precise intercept calculations necessary to destroy small, fast-moving targets like rockets and mortar rounds. The loss of this capability would reduce intercept rates and force the system to rely on less accurate backup guidance methods, potentially allowing more enemy projectiles to reach their intended targets and increasing civilian casualties. Israeli Air Force operations would be fundamentally transformed by the loss of GPS, forcing pilots to return to navigation methods that haven't been primary skills for an entire generation of aviators. Modern Israeli fighter aircraft rely on GPS for everything from basic navigation to target acquisition, formation flying, and precision bombing runs. Without GPS, pilots would need to rely on inertial navigation systems, ground-based radio beacons, and visual navigation techniques that are more time-consuming, less accurate, and significantly more vulnerable to enemy countermeasures and adverse weather conditions. The psychological and tactical impact on ground forces would be equally severe, as Israeli military doctrine has evolved to assume GPS availability for unit coordination, artillery fire support, and close air support operations. Israeli infantry and armored units have become accustomed to operating with precise knowledge of their location and the ability to call in support fires with GPS-guided accuracy. Without these capabilities, ground commanders would need to rely on map and compass navigation, visual landmarks, and radio triangulation methods that significantly slow operational tempo and increase the risk of friendly fire incidents and navigation errors. Artillery and rocket systems would face particular challenges, as modern Israeli artillery relies heavily on GPS for both positioning and target engagement. GPS allows artillery units to determine their exact firing position quickly and accurately, calculate precise firing solutions, and coordinate with forward observers to adjust fire onto targets. Without GPS, artillery units would need to conduct time-consuming surveying operations to determine their position, rely on less accurate firing tables, and use traditional observation methods that are more vulnerable to enemy detection and countermeasures. The logistics and supply chain implications of GPS loss would create cascading effects throughout the Israeli military structure, as modern military logistics depend heavily on GPS for convoy navigation, supply point location, and coordination between supply units and combat forces. Israeli military vehicles, from supply trucks to medical evacuation helicopters, rely on GPS for efficient navigation through complex terrain and urban environments. Without GPS, logistics operations would become significantly slower and more vulnerable to ambush, as supply convoys would need to rely on predetermined routes and visual navigation methods that are more predictable and easier for enemies to interdict. Naval operations would face unique challenges, as Israeli naval forces operate in the confined waters of the eastern Mediterranean, where precision navigation is critical for both offensive operations and collision avoidance. Israeli submarines, which rely on GPS for precise positioning when surfaced and for updating their inertial navigation systems, would be forced to rely solely on inertial navigation and periodic periscope fixes that are less accurate and more vulnerable to detection. Surface vessels would need to return to traditional celestial navigation and radar-based positioning methods that are more time-consuming and less precise than GPS-based systems. The intelligence and surveillance capabilities that form a critical component of Israeli military effectiveness would be severely degraded without GPS coordination between various collection platforms. Israeli intelligence operations rely on GPS to coordinate drone flights, satellite imagery collection, and ground-based surveillance systems to create comprehensive pictures of enemy activities. Without GPS, these systems would struggle to maintain accurate positioning data, making it difficult to correlate intelligence from multiple sources and reducing the overall effectiveness of intelligence-driven military operations. Electronic warfare and cyber operations would become even more critical in a GPS-denied environment, as Israeli forces would need to prioritize the disruption of enemy navigation and coordination capabilities to level the playing field. Israeli electronic warfare units would focus on jamming enemy communications and navigation systems while protecting their own backup navigation capabilities from similar attacks. This shift would require significant changes in tactical priorities and resource allocation, as electronic warfare assets would become essential for basic military operations rather than specialized support functions. The training and doctrine implications would be profound, as Israeli military forces would need to rapidly relearn navigation and coordination skills that have been de-emphasized in favor of GPS-dependent procedures. Military units would need to conduct intensive training on map and compass navigation, celestial navigation, radio triangulation, and other traditional navigation methods, while simultaneously adapting their tactical procedures to account for reduced accuracy and increased coordination time. This training burden would reduce the time available for other critical military skills and potentially degrade overall military readiness. Allied coordination and joint operations would become significantly more complex without GPS, as Israeli forces frequently operate alongside American and other Allied units that also depend heavily on GPS for coordination and communication. Joint operations would require the development of alternative coordination methods and the establishment of backup communication protocols that don't rely on GPS, synchronized timing and positioning. This complexity would reduce the effectiveness of joint operations and potentially limit Israel's ability to integrate with Allied forces during major conflicts. The strategic implications of GPS loss extend beyond immediate tactical effects to fundamental questions about Israeli military doctrine and strategic planning. Israeli military strategy has evolved to emphasize precision, speed, and technological superiority as force multipliers that allow a small nation to defend against numerically superior adversaries. The loss of GPS would force a return to more traditional military approaches that rely on larger numbers of less precise weapons and longer operational timelines, potentially negating many of the advantages that Israeli forces have cultivated over decades of technological development. What would happen if Israel lost GPS? During a war represents more than a technical challenge. It would constitute a fundamental transformation of Israeli military capability that would ripple through every aspect of national defense. The scenario demonstrates how modern military forces have become dependent on space-based infrastructure that is vulnerable to attack, jamming, and technical failure, creating single points of failure that could prove catastrophic during active conflict. Israeli military planners have recognized this vulnerability and invested heavily in backup navigation systems, alternative guidance technologies, and training programs designed to maintain military effectiveness even in GPS-denied environments. The story of GPS dependency in modern warfare serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of over-reliance on any single technology, no matter how reliable or ubiquitous it may seem. For Israel, the potential loss of GPS during warfare represents a return to the fundamental principles of military operations that existed before space-based navigation, requiring a balance between technological advancement and traditional military skills that can function independently of vulnerable infrastructure. This balance is essential not only for military effectiveness, but for national survival in a region where technological advantages can disappear as quickly as they are developed. If this incredible exploration of what would happen if Israel lost GPS during a war has captivated you as much as it has captivated us, please make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What other examples of technological vulnerabilities in modern warfare do you find most concerning? Do you believe military forces should maintain traditional skills as backups to modern technology? We'd love to hear your perspective on these critical strategic considerations. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more secrets of war and incredible stories of the technologies and strategies that are shaping our world. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode, because we're committed to bringing you the most compelling stories that demonstrate how technological advancement and strategic thinking, combined with unparalleled human adaptability, can create solutions that endure even when the most advanced systems fail.